He had always loved the quiet mornings on his farm. The air was crisp, filled with the earthy smell of soil and the soft rustle of corn leaves. Every morning he walked along the rows of his cornfield, checking each stalk carefully. It wasn't just a crop for him. It was a part of his life, something he had grown up with, something that connected him to his family. The farm had been in his family for generations, and he felt a deep responsibility to care for it. He had learned from his father and grandfather how to plant, water, and nurture every piece of land. Nothing brought him more peace than seeing the green waves of corn swaying in the wind. He was not a man of many words, but he greeted the neighbors when he saw them and returned smiles when they waved. Life on the edge of the small town was simple, but it was good. He had a few friends nearby, people who respected his space and shared in the quiet joys of country life. Some weekends he would help them with small chores, and they would lend a hand in return when he needed it. It was a community built on trust, hard work, and mutual respect. His routine was steady and comforting. Every morning he would rise with the sun, sip his coffee on the porch, and watch the light spill over the cornfield. He knew every corner of his land, every turn in the rows, and he had a deep pride in keeping it well tended. The field was more than just a business. It was a symbol of perseverance, a reflection of his effort and care. People often admired the way the corn grew tall and healthy. And he always felt a quiet satisfaction in that Karen had moved in a few years ago, and at first everything seemed normal. She was polite and kept to herself. The small town had its share of gossip, but he didn't pay much attention to it. As long as everyone respected each other's space, life went on peacefully. But over time, he noticed small things. Karen had a habit of walking along the edge of his property and staring at his field. Sometimes she would shake her head or mutter something under her breath. He didn't think much of it at first, assuming she had her reasons. Perhaps she liked the look of the land or had her own ideas about how things should be. One morning, as he inspected the corn, he noticed tire tracks at the far end of the field. They were faint, but they didn't belong. His heart sank for a moment, but he told himself it might have been a delivery truck or a neighbor checking on something. He checked the field carefully and didn't find any major damage. He decided to let it go, thinking it was just a small mistake. Still, a little unease lingered. Days passed, and the unease grew. Karen seemed to be around more often. He would see her driving slowly by his field or walking near the boundary. Every time she did, he felt a small tension in his chest. He had never had serious problems with neighbors before, and he didn't want to start now. But something in her behavior bothered him. It wasn't just curiosity. It felt deliberate, almost calculating. He tried to dismiss the thought, focusing instead on the work he loved. The farm demanded attention. There were always small tasks to do, from checking the irrigation to making sure the soil was healthy. He spent long hours in the sun, and sometimes he would stay late into the evening, making sure everything was in order. The satisfaction of seeing the field thrive was unmatched. Birds would fly across the rows, and the wind would make the stalks ripple like waves. He felt proud, knowing that his hands and care had produced something so strong and alive. Evenings were quiet. He would sit on the porch watching the sun set behind the distant hills. The sky would turn shades of orange and pink, and the farm would glow in a soft, golden light. It was a time for reflection, a moment to appreciate the simple beauty of life. Sometimes he would think about the history of the land, the people who had worked it before him, and the generations that would come after. It gave him a sense of purpose, a feeling that he was part of something bigger than himself. Despite the peaceful routine, the tension with Karen never fully left him. He would notice her looking through her window when she thought he wasn't watching. She would make comments about the field in passing, small remarks that seemed harmless but carried a subtle edge. He didn't confront her, choosing instead to focus on his work. It was a principle he had always held. Let the work speak for itself. And don't get drawn into unnecessary conflicts. One afternoon, he was repairing a section of the fence along the edge of the property. Karen drove by slowly, glancing at him and then at the cornfield. She waved, but it wasn't friendly. It felt forced. He returned the gesture politely and continued working, but he felt a chill. There was a sense that something was brewing. That the quiet life he loved might not stay so quiet for long. Even so, he tried to enjoy the present. He took pride in the details, the way the sun hit the leaves, the smell of the soil after a light rain, the sound of the wind through the stalks. He knew that life could be unpredictable, but he felt prepared to handle challenges as they came. The farm was his anchor, his place of stability in a world that sometimes felt chaotic. He believed that if he stayed true to his work, things would turn out as they should. As the days turned into weeks, he continued to maintain the field meticulously. He checked each row for pests, adjusted the watering system, and made notes about the growth of the corn. It was hard work, but it was satisfying. The farm had a rhythm, a heartbeat, and he was part of it. He felt connected to the earth in a way that brought him peace and fulfillment. Neighbors would occasionally stop by, asking about the crops or sharing small talk. He welcomed their visits, enjoying the sense of community, even if it was quiet and reserved. Everyone had their roles, their routines, and he found comfort in the predictability of these interactions. Life on the farm was not glamorous, but it was honest, and he cherished it. One evening, as he was finishing his work and heading back to the house, he noticed something strange. A few stalks at the far edge of the field were bent unnaturally. His heart skipped a beat, and he walked over to inspect them. There were tire marks near the edge, fresh and unmistakable. A cold wave of realization hit him. Someone had been in the field. Someone who shouldn't have been there. He looked around, scanning the edges of the property. Everything else seemed normal, but that small section told a different story. He felt a mix of anger and worry, but he tried to stay calm. He had faced challenges before, and he knew that panicking would not help. He decided to keep a close watch over the field and pay attention to any unusual activity. He didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning of a much bigger problem. One that would test his patience, his resources, and his determination. For now, he returned to his routine, trying to focus on the tasks at hand. He checked the irrigation, adjusted some supports for the taller stalks, and made sure everything else was in order. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the rows, and he felt a sense of calm despite the unease in the back of his mind. Life on the farm was full of challenges, and he had learned to meet them one by one. That night, he went to bed with a mixture of determination and concern. The cornfield was his legacy, and he would protect it. Whatever was coming, he knew he had the strength, the knowledge, and the resilience to face it. He didn't know how serious the situation would become, but he was ready to stand his ground. The farm had been through storms, droughts, and hard seasons before, and it had survived. With care, patience, and persistence, he believed it would survive this challenge too. In the morning, he would rise again with the sun, walking the rows of his cornfield, checking each stalk and keeping a watchful eye. The peace of the farm was precious, and he would do everything he could to maintain it. Life was unpredictable, but his love for the land gave him purpose, hope, and strength. The quiet moments, the small victories, and the connection to the earth would guide him through whatever lay ahead. Even if he didn't yet know the full extent of the trouble that was coming, the morning started like any other. He rose with the sun, brewed his coffee, and stepped onto the porch to admire the cornfield that stretched before him. The golden light of dawn cast long shadows, and the morning air was fresh and calm. Everything looked peaceful at first glance, but as he walked toward the far end of the field, his heart sank. The rows of corn that had been tall, strong, and proud were now trampled, broken, and lying in every direction. Stalks that had taken months to grow were crushed under heavy tracks, the soil torn and churned. He stopped and took a deep breath, trying to calm the sudden rush of anger and disbelief. How could this happen? He had worked tirelessly, often from sunrise to sunset, caring for each row, checking for pests, adjusting irrigation, and now it was all ruined. His mind raced, trying to understand what had caused this destruction, and then he saw the tracks' deep, deliberate tire marks cutting through the field. It was no accident. Someone had driven right through his corn, and it was intentional. The first person who came to mind was Karen. He had noticed her odd behavior. The way she had been watching the field, the way she seemed to resent the success and beauty of his land. Could she have really done this? The thought filled him with a mix of anger and disbelief. He wanted to confront her, to demand an explanation, but he knew he needed evidence before taking any action. He couldn't just accuse someone without proof. He walked slowly through the damaged rows, his boots sinking slightly into the soft, churned-up soil. Each step revealed more of the destruction, more evidence of how much work had been destroyed in just a few hours. He touched the broken stalks, feeling the heat of the sun through them, and imagined the countless hours of care that had gone into nurturing them. The sight was heartbreaking. This was not just a crop. It was a legacy, something he had inherited and cared for with devotion. Neighbors soon began to notice the damage. A few of them came by, offering sympathetic words and shaking their heads at the destruction. Some whispered about Karen, others just expressed shock at the scale of the damage. The news spread quickly through the small community. Everyone knew how much the cornfield meant to him, and seeing it destroyed brought a wave of shared concern. He appreciated their support, but the anger in his chest grew. Someone had crossed a line, and it had to be addressed. He returned to the house to call the insurance company. He had $2 million Australian dollars policy on the farm, something he had arranged after thinking carefully about worst-case scenarios. While speaking with the agent, he explained the situation in detail. The agent listened carefully, asking questions and noting everything down. He felt a small sense of relief, knowing that he had taken precautions. The insurance might cover the losses and help him rebuild. But he knew it wouldn't undo the immediate damage, the violation of his property. As he hung up the phone, he couldn't shake the feeling of frustration. It wasn't just about money. It was about respect, about someone disregarding the effort and dedication he had poured into the land. The cornfield had been his pride, and now it lay in ruins. He thought of his father and grandfather, imagining how they would have reacted to such an act. He could almost hear their advice: stay calm, gather proof, and do what was necessary to protect your property. He decided to document everything. He walked the field again, taking pictures from different angles, noting the tire tracks, the areas most affected, and the general pattern of destruction. Every detail mattered. He knew that if he wanted to pursue any kind of legal action, or even just present a solid claim to the insurance company, he needed evidence. His hands moved quickly, but carefully, making sure nothing was overlooked. The process was tedious and emotionally draining, but it gave him a sense of control amidst the chaos. As the day went on, he noticed Karen driving slowly past the property again. She slowed her car, glanced at the field, and then drove off. He felt a surge of anger, but reminded himself to stay composed. He knew that confronting her without proof could backfire. Instead, he focused on rebuilding his strategy. He would gather evidence, speak to witnesses, and make sure every step he took was documented. The goal was clear: restore his farm and insure the person responsible faced consequences. He spent the afternoon contacting neighbors who might have seen anything unusual. Some had heard strange noises during the night. Others had noticed Karen's vehicle in odd places. Piecing together these small details, he began to form a timeline of the incident. It was clear that this was no accident. Someone had planned the destruction, and the pattern of the tire tracks suggested intent. Each piece of information strengthened his resolve. He could rebuild the field. He could hold the responsible party accountable, despite the frustration and anger. He also focused on the practical steps needed to recover. The irrigation system had been damaged, and he spent hours repairing it. The soil was compacted in some areas, so he worked on loosening it to prepare for replanting. He knew that the growing season was limited, and that delays could affect the harvest. Every action he took was a step toward restoring not just the physical field, but the sense of normalcy and security he had lost. He thought about the farm's long-term future. The insurance money would help, but he realized that relying solely on it was not enough. He needed to implement additional measures to protect his property from future incidents. He considered installing cameras, improving fencing, and perhaps even using technology like drones to monitor the land. Each idea brought a small sense of relief, a reminder that he could take proactive steps to prevent further damage. That evening, as he sat on the porch, he reflected on the day's events. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the damaged cornfield. Despite the destruction, he could see the resilience of the remaining plants. They stood tall where they had survived, a symbol that life and growth could endure even after adversity. He felt a mix of sadness for what was lost and determination for what could be rebuilt. The day had tested his patience and resolve, but it had also reinforced his connection to the land. He realized that while the actions of one person had caused significant harm, they could not destroy the bond he had with his farm. He had worked too hard, loved too deeply, and cared too much for the land to let this incident break him. He made a plan for the next morning. He would continue documenting the field, checking for additional damage, preparing a detailed report for the insurance company. He would also begin the process of replanting, focusing on sections that could still be salvaged. The work would be challenging, but it was necessary. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, understanding that recovery would require both patience and effort. As night fell, he went inside the house, tired but determined. The destruction of the cornfield was a significant setback, but it was not the end. With careful planning, attention to detail, and the support of his neighbors and the insurance company, he believed that the farm could recover. He felt a sense of quiet confidence, knowing that he was taking the right steps to protect his property and secure its future. He lay in bed that night, thinking about the events of the day. The anger he had felt was still present, but it was now tempered by resolve. He understood that his response would define the outcome more than the actions of the person who had caused the damage. By staying focused, methodical, and persistent, he could ensure that justice was served and that the farm would thrive once again. The morning would bring new challenges, but he was ready. He would rise with the sun, walk the rows of his damaged cornfield, and continue the work that he loved. Each step, each repair, and each new planting would be a testament to his dedication and resilience. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but he was determined to see it through. The farm had survived storms before, and with care and effort, it would survive this as well. And in the end, the cornfield would stand tall again, a symbol of persistence, hard work, and the unbreakable bond between a farmer and his land. He had been thinking for days about the best way to protect his farm and prove what had happened. The destruction had left him shaken, but he refused to let it go unchallenged. He remembered the small drone he had purchased some months ago, mostly for taking aerial photos of the land and capturing the beauty of the farm. At the time, it had seemed like a hobby, a way to enjoy the land from a new perspective. Now it seemed like it might be the key to solving this problem. He carefully prepared the drone, making sure the camera was fully charged and the memory card was empty. The wind was light, and the sun cast a warm glow across the field. Every detail mattered. He wanted to capture the damage clearly and, if possible, gather proof of any activity that had caused it. He launched the drone, and it lifted smoothly into the sky, hovering over the rows of corn. From above, the full extent of the destruction was visible. Stalks were bent and broken in a pattern that made it clear this was intentional. Tire tracks cut through the field, connecting the ruined areas in a way that told a story of deliberate action as he guided the drone slowly along the field. Noticed something that made his heart race. At the edge of the cornfield, he saw the faint outline of a vehicle moving along the neighboring property. The timing matched the previous days when he had suspected someone of being involved. He maneuvered the drone carefully, zooming in to capture the vehicle's details. The video recorded every movement, every tire mark, every step of the vehicle as it approached the boundary. It was exactly what he needed, evidence that could not be ignored. He spent hours flying the drone over different sections of the field and the surrounding property. He captured every angle, every detail, making sure nothing was left to chance. The video footage was clear, time-stamped, and undeniable. He could see the path that the vehicle had taken, the points where it had driven into the field, and the subtle signs of someone intentionally causing damage. It was satisfying in a way, not because he enjoyed catching someone in the act, but because now he had the proof to defend his farm and his livelihood. Once he had all the footage, he carefully landed the drone and reviewed the videos. Each clip showed the damage, the patterns of destruction, and the vehicle at the edge of the property. He could see the driver's movements, the way they lingered near the field, and then moved on. The evidence was thorough and undeniable. He felt a sense of relief and confidence. Finally, he had the tools to show exactly what had happened, to back up his claims with something more than words or speculation. The next day, he scheduled a meeting with the HOA. He had been trying to resolve the situation through regular communication. But the HOA had been dismissive, suggesting the damage might have been accidental and advising him not to make waves. He knew they were trying to protect someone else or avoid responsibility. With the drone footage in hand, he felt prepared to confront them and demand accountability. He entered the HOA office calmly but firmly. The administrator looked surprised to see him with such detailed documentation. He played the video on the screen, showing every angle, every detail of the field's destruction. The HOA members watched in silence, their expressions changing as the evidence became clear. They could no longer deny what had happened. The proof was too thorough, too specific, and too direct to be ignored. For a long moment, there was no sound except the soft hum of the computer and the faint flicker of the video. Then one of the members finally spoke, acknowledging the damage, but trying to downplay it. He calmly explained that the video showed clear intent and that the farm's insurance claim was valid. He emphasized that the footage proved the destruction was deliberate and could be used as evidence in any further action if necessary. The HOA representatives shifted uncomfortably. They had hoped to avoid this situation, to manage it quietly, but the evidence left them with no choice. He outlined a clear plan. The insurance company would handle the claim, and any legal action would proceed if necessary. There was no room for negotiation, no way to manipulate the situation. The drone had captured everything, leaving the HOA powerless to dispute it. After the meeting, he felt a renewed sense of control. The farm was still damaged, but he now had the upper hand. The evidence would ensure that the person responsible could not escape accountability. The insurance process would help restore the field. He returned home with a sense of quiet satisfaction, knowing that his preparation and foresight had paid off. The farm was safe, and the truth was clear. Over the next few days, he continued to monitor the property using the drone. He flew it at different times of day, capturing images and videos to maintain a record of activity around the field. The community began to take notice, and some neighbors expressed admiration for his approach. They had seen the destruction and understood the effort it took to maintain the farm, and now they saw how he had used technology to protect it. There was a sense of respect for the way he handled the situation, for the careful, thoughtful, and effective response. He also began preparing the insurance documentation, compiling the drone footage, photos, and written notes. Every detail was important. He wanted to make sure the claim was processed smoothly and that no one could challenge it. The process was time-consuming and required patience, but he was used to hard work and careful attention to detail. Each step he took brought him closer to restoring the farm and ensuring that justice was served. Evenings were spent reviewing the footage and planning the recovery of the field. He mapped out sections that could be replanted, noting where the soil needed repair and where irrigation systems had been damaged. It was meticulous work, but it felt purposeful. He was turning chaos into order, damage into action. The farm was his responsibility, and he embraced it fully. The drone had become more than a hobby. It was a tool of protection, a way to maintain oversight, and a means to ensure that the truth could not be hidden. He reflected on how technology, combined with careful observation and dedication, could change the course of events. Without the drone, the HOA might have continued to deny responsibility, and the person who caused the damage could have gone unpunished. The realization brought a quiet satisfaction and reinforced his commitment to protect what was his. He also used the drone to monitor the growth of the remaining corn. Despite the destruction, some sections had survived, and he wanted to track their progress. The footage showed the resilience of the plants, standing tall amidst the damaged areas. It was a reminder that recovery was possible, that life could continue even after setbacks. He felt a sense of hope and determination as he planned. The next steps for replanting and restoring the farm, neighbors occasionally stopped by, expressing concern and asking about the drone footage. He shared small details, explaining how it had helped him document the destruction and protect his property. The community's support was reassuring, and it strengthened his resolve to see the recovery through. He realized that, while one person had caused damage, the collective efforts of careful planning, technology, and community awareness could prevent further harm as the days passed. He continued flying the drone, checking for any suspicious activity or potential threats. The field was beginning to show signs of care, with repaired irrigation lines and sections prepared for replanting. He felt a growing sense of accomplishment, knowing that each action he took was a step toward restoring the farm to its full glory. The drone had become a symbol of his determination, a tool that bridged the gap between vulnerability and control. One afternoon, he reviewed the footage and noticed small details he had missed before. Tracks at the edges of the property, subtle movements, and signs of preparation for the act of destruction. Each observation added to the clarity of the situation, confirming that the damage was intentional. He felt a sense of vindication, knowing that the truth was now fully documented. The person responsible could not deny it, and the farm was protected through careful planning and evidence. Even as he worked tirelessly, he found moments to enjoy the beauty of the land. Watching the drone hover above the fields, capturing the sunlight on the leaves, he felt a renewed connection to the farm. It was a reminder that despite challenges, the land remained a source of peace, purpose, and fulfillment. The destruction had tested him, but it had also strengthened his commitment and resourcefulness. By the end of the week, he had compiled a comprehensive record of the damage, the surrounding activity, and the steps taken to protect the farm. The insurance claim was well documented. The HOA had been confronted with undeniable evidence, and the farm was prepared for the next phase of recovery. The drone had been a critical part of this process, providing clarity, oversight, and proof that could not be ignored. He felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The farm was still standing, the cornfield would recover, and the person responsible would face accountability. Technology, diligence, and determination had turned a difficult situation into an opportunity to protect what mattered most. He knew that challenges might continue to arise, but he also knew that with careful planning and persistence, he could overcome them. As he watched the sunset over the cornfield, the drone safely landed and powered down. He reflected on the lessons learned. Preparation, foresight, and the willingness to adapt had made all the difference. The farm was more than a piece of land. It was a reflection of resilience, responsibility, and the human spirit. And with each passing day, it would continue to thrive, stronger and better protected than ever before. After the evidence had been presented, and the HOA could no longer ignore the facts, he finally felt a sense of relief. The drone footage had done exactly what he hoped it would. It had exposed the truth, provided undeniable proof of the intentional destruction, and ensured that the insurance claim could be processed without unnecessary interference. Still, the work was far from over. The farm needed care, repairs, and replanting. There was a long road ahead, but he felt a renewed determination to restore the land and reclaim his peace of mind. The first step was to repair the damaged areas of the cornfield. He walked along the trampled rows, taking notes on the soil that had been compacted and the irrigation lines that had been disrupted. Each section required a different approach. Some areas needed deep tilling to loosen the soil, while others required reinforcement of supports for young stalks that were still standing. He moved carefully, methodically, treating each part of the field as a puzzle to be restored piece by piece. Neighbors began to take notice of his tireless work. A few stopped by to offer help, bringing tools or extra hands to assist with heavy lifting and soil preparation. The support was encouraging, and he welcomed it. Knowing that restoring the field would be easier and more effective with some help, he felt grateful for the community, and the experience strengthened his bond with those around him. Even small gestures, like someone bringing a water jug or sharing a word of encouragement, made a big difference in his morale. As the days passed, he began replanting seeds in the areas that had been ruined. He carefully spaced each seed, ensuring proper soil depth and alignment. The process was slow and labor-intensive, but he took pride in every action. He felt connected to the land with each movement, knowing that the corn would grow stronger and healthier for the care he was putting in now. It was a labor of love, a a step toward reclaiming the life and stability the farm had offered him for so many years. The insurance process moved forward smoothly. With the drone footage and detailed documentation he had prepared, the claim was approved without dispute. The compensation allowed him to purchase additional equipment and supplies, ensuring that the replanting and repairs could proceed efficiently. While the money could never fully erase the stress and frustration caused by the destruction, it provided a tangible means to rebuild and recover. He also focused on strengthening the farm's defenses against future problems. He installed better fencing along the property line and added signs to deter trespassers. He upgraded the irrigation system to prevent future damage from accidents and implemented regular drone monitoring to keep an eye on the field from above. Each measure added a layer of security, a sense that the farm could withstand challenges more effectively in the future. The preparation brought a sense of empowerment, turning a once vulnerable property into one that was protected and resilient. The process of recovery was slow, but he was patient. He measured progress by small victories, the germination of newly planted seeds, the repair of irrigation lines, and the gradual strengthening of previously damaged stalks. Each step forward felt meaningful, a sign that the farm could survive and thrive again. The hard work also served as a form of therapy, allowing him to channel frustration into constructive action. Rather than dwelling on the anger caused by the damage, he focused on creating growth and restoration. Meanwhile, Karen faced consequences for her actions. The HOA and insurance company had documentation of the intentional damage, and the evidence could not be denied. Depending on local regulations and agreements, she received a fine or was held liable for part of the damages. The community began to see that actions had consequences, and it served as a reminder that property and personal responsibility could not be taken lightly. While he did not relish seeing someone punished, he understood the necessity of accountability and fairness. As weeks turned into months, the cornfield began to recover. The replanted seeds sprouted, the irrigation system functioned smoothly, and the damaged soil regained its structure. The rows of green began to stretch across the field once more, a sign that life was returning and the farm was healing. Walking through the field, he felt pride and relief. The damage had been severe, but through perseverance, preparation, and community support, he had restored the farm's vitality. The drone remained a vital tool. He continued using it to monitor the field, capturing images and videos that tracked the growth of the new crops. It provided reassurance, showing him the field from above and allowing him to detect any problems early. The technology had not only helped document the initial damage, but also became an integral part of ongoing care. It was a reminder that adapting and using available resources wisely could make a significant difference. He reflected on the lessons he had learned through the ordeal. The farm was more than a source of income. It was a symbol of resilience, patience, and the value of hard work. While unexpected challenges could threaten stability, careful planning, vigilance, and determination could restore it. He realized that setbacks were part of life, but they could be overcome with commitment and resourcefulness. The experience strengthened his confidence and reinforced his belief in the importance of protecting what mattered most. The community noticed the transformation. Neighbors who had seen the initial destruction were impressed by the recovery. The farm was once again thriving, and the rows of corn stood tall, healthier than before. People admired not only the results but also the dedication, careful planning, and effort that had gone into restoring the land. It was a quiet but powerful demonstration of resilience. It earned respect from everyone who witnessed it. He also took time to enjoy the beauty of the farm. Walking through the rows of growing corn, listening to the wind rustle through the leaves, and observing the sunrise over the field brought a sense of peace and satisfaction. The land had survived the storm, and so had he. The experience had tested his patience, strength, and resourcefulness, but it had also revealed his capacity to overcome adversity. Looking forward, he began to plan for the future with a sense of optimism. He considered ways to make the farm even more productive, efficient, and sustainable. He implemented new methods for irrigation, soil care, and crop monitoring. Each innovation was a step toward ensuring that the farm would not only recover, but thrive beyond its previous state. The experience had taught him the importance of foresight and preparation, and he was committed to applying these lessons. Through the ordeal, he realized that adversity could bring out hidden strengths. The initial destruction had been a shock, but it had also prompted him to think creatively, act decisively, and leverage tools like the drone to protect what was valuable. The combination of careful planning, evidence, and determination had ensured that justice was served. The farm was protected, and life could move forward by the end of the season. The cornfield had regained much of its former glory. The rows were strong, lush, and thriving. Birds returned, the wind danced through the leaves, and the farm pulsed with life once more. He walked through the field, running his hands along the stalks, and felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The farm had survived. He had guided it through one of the most challenging periods of his life. The experience left him wiser and more vigilant. He understood that protecting what he loved required preparation, awareness, and sometimes technology. He also realized the importance of community, evidence, and standing up for oneself. The farm was a testament to resilience, and its recovery was proof that determination, care, and foresight could overcome even deliberate harm. Sitting on the porch one evening, watching the sunset over the thriving cornfield, he felt a deep sense of peace. The farm was not just a plot of land. It was a reflection of his perseverance, his love for the land, and his commitment to nurturing life. The ordeal had been difficult, but it had strengthened him, taught him valuable lessons, and reaffirmed the bond between a person and the land they care for. The farm would continue to grow, stronger and more secure than ever. He had faced challenges, documented evidence, restored the land, and ensured accountability. Through patience, hard work, and resourcefulness, he had turned a devastating situation into a story of resilience and recovery. And as he watched the last light fade over the cornfield, he knew that the future was bright, that the farm was safe, and that his commitment to protecting it would never waver. Months had passed since the destruction of the cornfield, and life on the farm had begun to settle into a steady rhythm again. The newly planted crops had grown tall and healthy. The irrigation system worked flawlessly, and the soil had regained its strength. He had rebuilt fences, reinforced boundaries, and continued using the drone to keep watch over the property. Despite all the challenges he had faced, the farm now stood stronger than ever, a testament to persistence, hard work, and careful planning. Every morning, he walked through the rows of corn, inspecting each stalk with meticulous care. He took pride in knowing that his efforts were paying off, that each seed had taken root and grown into a thriving plant. The rhythm of daily work was soothing, a steady reminder that life went on and that resilience could overcome setbacks. The farm was alive again, filled with the sounds of nature, birds chirping, the rustle of leaves in the wind, and the faint hum of the irrigation system. It was a symphony of life that reassured him that he had made the right choices. He reflected on how much he had learned during the ordeal. The experience had taught him the importance of preparation, foresight, and vigilance. The drone had proven invaluable, allowing him to gather evidence, monitor the property, and ensure accountability. He realized that technology, when combined with determination and care, could be a powerful tool to protect what mattered most. It had turned a situation of vulnerability into one of empowerment. The community around him also played a role in the farm's recovery. Neighbors continued to offer support, sharing tips, lending equipment, celebrating the milestones of the farm's restoration. Their encouragement reinforced a sense of connection and reminded him that he was not alone. Even small gestures, like a neighbor stopping by to check on the crops or offering a word of advice, strengthened the bonds of trust and mutual respect. He spent long hours in the field, not just tending to the crops, but also thinking about ways to improve the farm for the future. He studied soil composition, experimented with crop rotation, and planned for additional technology that could enhance efficiency and protect against future problems. Each idea was carefully considered, grounded in experience, and aimed at long-term sustainability. He understood that success required both hard work and smart planning. One day, while walking the edge of the field, he noticed a small section where the soil still looked uneven. He knelt down to inspect it and realized that some areas required additional reinforcement before the next planting season. He spent the next few hours working on it, adjusting irrigation, adding fertilizer, and ensuring that the land would support healthy growth. Each task, no matter how small, felt meaningful. It was a reminder that care and attention to detail were crucial in maintaining the farm's health and productivity. The drone continued to be a vital part of his routine. He launched it every few days, capturing aerial views of the entire property. The perspective from above allowed him to identify patterns, monitor growth, and detect potential issues before they became serious. It had become more than a tool for evidence. It was now an integral part of his farm management strategy. He marveled at how much insight a small machine could provide, giving him the ability to see the bigger picture while still tending to the smallest details with each passing week. The farm grew stronger. The corn reached impressive heights, swaying gracefully in the wind. Birds returned in greater numbers, and the soil became rich and fertile. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that his dedication and perseverance had restored life to the land. The farm was no longer just a source of livelihood. It was a symbol of resilience and determination, proof that challenges could be overcome with patience and effort. He also reflected on the personal growth he had experienced. The ordeal had tested his patience, resolve, and ability to manage unexpected crises. He had learned to stay calm under pressure, gather evidence, and take decisive action when needed. These lessons extended beyond the farm, shaping his approach to life, relationships, and problem-solving. He understood that setbacks were temporary, and that persistence, preparation, and careful planning could lead to recovery and success. The community continued to respect his approach. Local neighbors often spoke about how he had handled the situation, using evidence and technology rather than anger or confrontation. It became a quiet lesson for others, showing that determination, thoughtful action, and accountability could protect property and maintain harmony. He felt proud not only of the farm but also of the example he had set for others in the community as the season progressed. He began to plan for the next steps. He considered expanding the farm, planting additional crops, and exploring new methods for sustainability. Each decision was carefully weighed, grounded in experience and observation. He understood that growth required not just hard work, but also careful strategy. The farm had recovered from near devastation, and now it was an opportunity to make it even stronger and more productive. He spent long evenings on the porch, watching the sun set over the thriving cornfield. The light reflected off the green stalks, casting a golden hue that seemed to celebrate the success of the restoration. He listened to the sounds of the evening, the chirping of crickets, the rustle of leaves, and the occasional call of a distant bird. It was peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos and worry of the past months. He felt a deep sense of contentment, knowing that his perseverance had paid off. Occasionally, he thought about Karen and the damage that had been done. The anger he had felt initially had faded, replaced by a calm understanding. He had achieved accountability through careful evidence gathering, insurance claims, and HOA involvement. He did not relish the consequences that she faced, but he recognized that fairness and responsibility were necessary. The experience had taught him that standing firm and taking the right steps could resolve conflict without unnecessary confrontation. He also began mentoring some younger farmers in the area. Sharing lessons from his experience, he talked about careful record keeping, the value of preparation, and the importance of community support. He emphasized how technology like drones could be used responsibly to monitor crops and protect property. The guidance he provided was practical, grounded in real experience, and aimed at helping others avoid similar challenges. It gave him a sense of purpose beyond the farm, knowing that his knowledge could benefit others. Over time, the farm became a model of resilience and careful management. Visitors would occasionally stop by, curious about how he had recovered from such significant destruction. He would show them the fields, the irrigation systems, and the drone footage, explaining the steps he had taken to restore the farm. People were impressed not only by the recovery, but also by his patience, attention to detail, and thoughtful approach. The story of the farm became a quiet inspiration in the community. He continued to innovate and improve. He experimented with crop rotation, soil enrichment, and efficient water usage. Each new method was carefully tested and applied, ensuring that the farm became not just restored, but enhanced. He kept detailed notes, tracking growth patterns, weather effects, and soil health. The farm had become a living experiment in resilience, sustainability, and productivity. Guided by experience and careful observation, even as the farm thrived, he remained vigilant. He continued monitoring for pests, weather threats, and potential trespassers. The lessons from the destruction had instilled a lasting awareness. He knew that success required ongoing attention, proactive measures, and the willingness to adapt. The drone and other tools allowed him to maintain a constant overview, ensuring that the farm remained secure and healthy.